"What do you mean he's been sleeping in the van?" Nolan Ferris asked, his voice low but tense. He was sitting in his office, staring at a report he couldn't ignore anymore. Customer complaints from Store 9 were piling up, and late deliveries were becoming routine. But it wasn't just the customers. 2 warehouse workers had recently quit without notice, citing hostile management and burnout. Nolan had inherited the 13-location delivery company from his father 5 years ago and grown it into something solid, but lately, something had shifted. His district manager, Jerome, always brushed things off. "Just growing pains, Nolan. We're short-staffed, and they're soft. That's all." But Nolan didn't like second-hand answers. He hadn't visited the warehouses in months, and he'd never met the crew at Store 9, not in person. That branch had gone through 3 managers in 2 years. The latest one, Derek, had been promoted fast, mostly because he played nice with Jerome. Nolan rubbed his face. "I need to see it for myself." He spent the next few days working on his disguise. Trimmed his beard down, switched out his usual pressed shirts for worn flannel and a thermal vest. He even changed his walk, his posture. Everyone at HQ knew the CEO. But with 13 locations and constant turnover, most of the staff at individual branches had only seen his face in old training videos, if that. He gave himself a new name, Nate. The following Monday, he walked through the back door of Store 9's warehouse just before 5 a.m. The place smelled like diesel, dust, and frozen air. A tall, lanky guy named Brandon nodded at him without much interest. "You the new guy?" Brandon asked, yawning behind a gloved hand. "Yeah, first day, Nate," Nolan replied, keeping his tone casual. Brandon shrugged. "Good luck, man. Derek's a piece of work." Before Nolan could ask more, Derek himself came stomping through the warehouse, coffee in hand, barking at 2 workers about a missed shipment scan. He was mid-30s, clean haircut, loud voice. Walked like he owned the place. "Who's this?" Derek asked, eyeing Nolan. "Nate, new hire," Brandon replied. Derek barely looked at him. "Cool. Just don't screw anything up." Nolan spent the next 3 hours helping load crates onto trucks. There were only 4 guys on the floor, doing work meant for 6. Derek didn't lift a finger. He just paced, criticized, and bragged about how he was holding it down, despite the lazy workforce. Around 8, Nolan noticed a driver named Eli moving slower than the rest. Mid-40s, dark circles under his eyes, jacket zipped all the way up. He was coughing into his shoulder between loading boxes into his van. "You all right?" Nolan asked. Eli gave a half smile. "Yeah, just didn't sleep great." Nolan didn't push it then, but something about Eli stuck with him. Lunch came and went, but no one seemed to take a break. When Nolan asked Brandon about it, he just shrugged. "Derek says breaks are for when we're caught up. We're never caught up." By late afternoon, Nolan's back ached. He helped Eli finish loading his route. As they shut the van doors, Eli muttered, "Hope it's warmer tonight." "What do you mean?" Eli blinked like he'd said too much. "Nothing, just cold out lately." Nolan helped close up for the day, then sat in his car outside the warehouse for a while, watching. Around 10 p.m., when the lot was almost empty, he saw Eli's van still parked in the corner. He waited. An hour later, the van's interior light flicked on briefly. Eli climbed into the back, wrapped in a sleeping bag. Nolan's stomach dropped. He stepped out of his car and tapped on the van window. Eli froze. "It's just me, Nate." Eli opened the side door slowly. "What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing." Eli lowered his eyes. "Didn't mean for you to see this, just can't afford rent right now. Been crashing here a couple weeks. Warehouse is closed at night, and the van's got insulation, mostly." "You told anyone?" Eli just looked away. "Told Derek once. He said, 'Don't make your problems my problem.'" Nolan felt something twist in his gut. He nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "Thanks for telling me." He walked back to his car, hands shaking. He hadn't expected to find this. Not one of his drivers sleeping in a cold van, invisible in plain sight. The next morning, he took off the disguise. Time to find out what else had been hiding in the dark. Nolan arrived early the next morning, before the warehouse lights flickered on. A night of restless sleep in his downtown hotel room had left him running on caffeine and adrenaline. He was back in his Nate gear, but this time, Every move he made had a sharper edge. He wasn't just observing anymore, he was watching. As the warehouse slowly came to life, the workers filtered in. Brandon nodded at him again, more familiar this time, and Nolan fell into line next to him without a word. He wanted to see more before doing anything. Derek hadn't shown up yet. Brandon was loading crates onto a dolly when he muttered, "You ever pulled 4 doubles in a row?" Nolan glanced at him. "No." Brandon sniffed. "Feels like your bones are rusting. Derek says we'll get overtime back pay. Been saying that since March." Nolan didn't respond. He just kept his hands moving. The morning air inside the warehouse was bitter, and the old heating unit rattled every few minutes like it was gasping for its last breath. At 6:40, Derek finally walked in. He wasn't alone this time. A young woman followed him mid-20s, clipboard in hand, earbuds still dangling from her hoodie. She looked exhausted. "This is Kira," Derek announced to no one in particular. "She's doing inventory now. If she asks you anything, answer fast. I don't want this taking all day." Kira gave a half-hearted wave. "Hi." Nolan caught the way she winced as she walked favoring her right leg, like she was nursing an injury. Derek was already halfway to his office by the time she set her bag down near the back shelves. Brandon leaned over. "She tore something in her knee last month. Doc told her to rest it. Derek cut her hours." Nolan frowned. "Shouldn't she be on light duty then?" "She is," Brandon said, voice tight. "That's what he calls walking 12 miles a day with a clipboard." Kira limped past them a few minutes later, her eyes flicking toward Nolan. "You're the new guy?" "Yeah," he said. "Nate. Don't let Derek catch you standing still. He'll say you're not hungry enough." She moved on before he could respond. By mid-morning, Nolan had seen enough to start connecting dots. Derek had implemented a point system, one Brandon explained in a whisper when Derek wasn't around. If a worker clocked in more than 3 minutes late, they got a point. If they asked to go home sick, 2 points. 5 points in a month, and they were on review. "Review means he cuts your hours and says it's to motivate you," Brandon said, lifting a box onto the loading ramp. "But if you're his buddy, you can show up whenever." Nolan asked, "How often does that happen?" Brandon wiped sweat from his brow. "Ronnie's late twice a week, still gets Saturday routes." Ronnie was Derek's cousin. Nolan had figured that out when he watched the two of them laughing in the break room before Derek disappeared into his office again. At 11:30, Eli came in from his morning route. He looked worse than yesterday, eyes bloodshot, coughing heavier. Nolan helped him unload returns. "You sleep all right?" Eli hesitated before answering. "Tried to. Some idiot was yelling in the parking lot around 2. You know you're not supposed to be staying in the van, right?" Eli's expression tightened. "You gonna report me?" "No," Nolan said. "Just asking what you need." Eli paused, and when he spoke, his voice was hoarse. "I need to work. That's what I need." They finished unloading in silence. When Eli walked off, Nolan saw that he was limping too. Minor, but it was there. At lunch, Nolan sat on an overturned crate next to Kira while she scribbled numbers on a sheet, chewing a protein bar instead of eating a real meal. "How long you been here?" he asked. "Almost 2 years, she said. "Got promoted to inventory last fall. Thought it'd be better than the floor. It's not." "Why stay?" Kyra looked up, finally meeting his eyes. "Because I'm 1 semester away from finishing my accounting degree. I do night classes. I just need the job to hold until May. Then I'm gone." Nolan nodded, then asked, "You ever report anything to HR?" She gave a short laugh, bitter and soft. "You mean Jerome? He's the one who gave Derek the promotion. Said we needed someone tough." Nolan stood. "Thanks," he said. He didn't ask anything else. By the time the shift ended, he'd seen enough. One of the temp workers, Jamal, had been yelled at by Derek for taking more than 2 minutes in the restroom. A driver had been sent back on the road with a flat tire because Derek didn't want to waste time getting a backup van. And when a customer called to complain about a late delivery, Derek answered the phone with, "What do you want me to do about it?" No apology, no ownership, just deflection. Nolan waited until the workers began clocking out. He changed quickly in his car, ditching the flannel and vest for a navy button, down and blazer he'd kept in the trunk. When he re-entered the warehouse through the front, Derek was sitting at the office desk, feet up, scrolling through his phone. Derek didn't look up. "We're closed, buddy. Come back tomorrow." Nolan stepped forward. "Derek Lanning?" "Who wants to know?" "I do," Nolan said. "Nolan Ferris." Derek's eyes snapped up. The phone dropped from his hand and clattered onto the desk. "Your wait, from corporate?" "No," Nolan said, voice steady. "I own this company." Silence. Brandon had just stepped into the break room and froze when he heard the words. Kira stopped mid-step near the back aisle. Eli, dragging his cart toward the dock, turned slowly. Derek stood up fast. "Sir, I didn't know." "No," Nolan interrupted. "You didn't. You thought no one was watching." He walked past Derek and opened the office door wide so everyone could hear. "I've spent the last day and a half working alongside people who are exhausted, injured, and scared to speak up. I watched one of our best drivers sleep in a freezing van because he couldn't afford rent. I saw you yell, lie, and abandon every single value this company is supposed to stand for." Derek stammered, "Look, I can fix—" "You've had your chance," Nolan said. "You're done. Your access ends now. Brandon, can you call security?" Brandon blinked, then nodded and pulled out his phone. Derek's eyes darted around. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Jerome, "I'll deal with Jerome," Nolan said firmly. "You're finished." Derek stormed out without another word. The moment the door slammed shut, a strange quiet settled over the warehouse. Nolan turned toward the workers. "I owe all of you more than this. Starting tomorrow, there will be a new interim manager here, and by next week, we'll have a permanent one, someone who actually listens." Kyra asked, "What about the point system?" "Gone," Nolan said. "Immediately. And if anyone's had pay held back for overtime, I want a record of it. You'll be paid in full." Eli cleared his throat. "What about housing assistance?" Nolan met his eyes. "Come by the regional office tomorrow. We'll make sure you're in a hotel by nightfall. Then we'll talk long term." Eli gave a short nod, jaw clenched. Nolan looked around. "I'm not disappearing after this. You'll see me again. We're rebuilding this from the floor up." He didn't wait for applause. He just walked back to the office, sat down in Derek's old chair, and started writing names. Not of who to fire, but who to promote. By Thursday morning, Nolan had appointed a regional supervisor from a different branch, Lisa Tran, a sharp, even-tempered logistics lead from Store 5 to oversee Store 9 temporarily. She arrived just after 6, clipboard in hand, utility jacket zipped to her chin, and eyes scanning everything as if she could measure the culture just by the way people moved. Nolan walked in beside her, still in his CEO attire, no pretense anymore. "Get me a list of current staff, active routes, and vehicle statuses," he said. "I want to see exactly where we're bleeding." Lisa nodded. "Already started. Trucks 3 and 6 need maintenance logs. Also, only 4 warehouse staff scheduled today bare minimum. They're cycling between loading, sorting, and inbound intake. Who approved that? Jerome's last schedule, no flex backups. Then we're adjusting it now." By 7, Nolan called the warehouse crew in for a quick stand-up. No speeches, just clear direction. "Until a permanent manager is in place, Lisa has full authority. Any issues, you bring them to her directly. I'll be here the rest of the week as well. We're not here to micromanage, we're here to fix the structure." Kira leaned on the pallet scale behind the group, arms crossed but eyes attentive. She hadn't spoken up, but Nolan could tell she was tracking every word. Eli stood near the rear, sipping lukewarm coffee from a paper cup. His shoulders were hunched less than the day before, but he still looked like a man waiting for something to go wrong. He turned to walk back to his van, but Nolan called out, "Eli, quick word." Eli approached cautiously. Nolan didn't waste time. "You'll finish today's route, then you're off the clock for the next 2 days. We've booked a hotel for you near the clinic. You're scheduled for a wellness check this afternoon." Eli's jaw tensed. "I didn't ask for charity." "It's not charity. You're an employee. You need to be healthy to work. This is the company investing in that." After a long pause, Eli gave a brief nod. "Appreciate it." Nolan turned to Lisa. "Get payroll updated. I want him paid for the off days." At 8:20, Lisa intercepted a call from a driver stuck on the freeway with engine failure. She relayed the issue calmly, coordinated a tow, and reassigned the route to another van after confirming it could handle the additional weight. She did it without raising her voice or rushing anyone. Nolan watched her work. "I don't need someone who barks orders," he said. "I need someone who sees what's missing before it breaks." Lisa didn't look up. "Then you're already 3 months late." By midday, Nolan reviewed the personnel files Derek had left behind. Most of them were incomplete. Some had outdated emergency contacts. Others had unsigned tax forms. Jamal's file had a sticky note on it. "Keep him on weekends only. Too slow." Nolan flagged it. He hadn't seen anything slow about Jamal. He worked methodically, sure, but he double-checked labels while other loaders rushed past him and later had to fix their mistakes. He found Jamal near the back dock, tightening straps on a pallet headed for a downtown drop. "You've been here how long?" Nolan asked. Jamal wiped his hands. 6 months. Was part-time at first. Been trying to get full-time, but they kept shifting my hours." "Who's they?" "Derek and Jerome. Said I wasn't moving fast enough, but I always finish my loadouts." "Any write-ups?" "No, sir." "Good. Starting next week, you're full-time, benefits included." Jamal blinked. "Just like that?" "You earned it." As Nolan turned to walk away, Jamal spoke again. "I didn't think people upstairs noticed guys like me." "They usually don't," Nolan said. "That's the problem." At 2, a woman named Tanya arrived to cover the afternoon sorting shift. She was new 2 weeks into the job and had been quiet during the morning rush. Nolan noticed she was left off the rotation for break coverage. He stepped toward her as she finished unloading returns from the midday runs. "You had a break yet?" She shook her head. "Didn't want to ask." "Why not?" She hesitated. "I asked on Monday. Derek told me I should earn it first. But I thought we got 2 breaks by policy." "You do," Nolan said. "You always have." She looked down. Didn't feel like it mattered. "Starting today, it does." A minute later, Nolan pulled Lisa aside. "I want a full audit of break coverage for the last 3 months. If there were violations, we're correcting everyone, back pay included." Lisa gave a short nod. "I'll start pulling time card logs." At 4, Jerome walked in without warning. He wore his usual zip-up vest and sunglasses perched on his head. He didn't even glance at the workers, just made a beeline for the office. Nolan stood in his path. "Didn't expect to see you here," Jerome said, smiling like it was a social call. "I told you this branch had problems," Nolan said. "You told me it was under control." Jerome shrugged. "It was manageable. A few complaints, sure. But you know how people get. Sensitive these days. And Derek, he might have pushed hard, but he kept things moving. He lied on time cards, ignored safety protocols, and retaliated against staff. You backed him." Jerome's tone sharpened. "I did what I had to. You want results? I got results." "At what cost?" Jerome stepped closer. "Look, I've been with this company a long time. You're new to the field side, Nolan. You don't know what it takes to keep these places from falling apart." "I do now." Nolan turned slightly, gesturing toward the warehouse floor behind him. "I've worked the line. I've seen people skip meals just to stay off Derek's radar. I watched a man sleep in a freezing van because your hand-picked manager refused to help." Jerome scoffed. "You think you're going to fix all this by playing hero for a week?" "No," Nolan said. "I'm going to fix it by cutting out the people who let it rot." Jerome's face hardened. "You can't run 13 locations without people like me. You'll see." "I already have." Lisa approached from the side, holding a printed document. "Payroll discrepancy summary," she said, handing it to Nolan. 17 violations, all within the last 60 days. All approved by Jerome. Jerome looked down at the sheet, then back at Nolan. "You're making a mistake." "No," Nolan said. "You did." He nodded toward the exit. "You're done. Your access ends today. I'll have HR send your formal termination packet." Jerome didn't argue. He just turned and walked out, muttering something under his breath that Nolan didn't bother to catch. The warehouse floor had gone quiet again, not out of fear this time, but out of disbelief. Kira stepped forward, still holding her clipboard. "You really just fired the regional head?" Nolan looked at her. "I told you, this isn't a show. It's a reset." She nodded slowly. "Then you'll need more than one Lisa. Already working on it." As the shift wrapped, Lisa gathered the crew for final notes. This time, everyone spoke short updates, questions about routing changes, even a few suggestions on how to reorganize the intake area for better flow. Nolan stood back, listening. No one looked over their shoulder. No one flinched when a supervisor passed. Kira cracked a joke about the label printer being older than she was. Jamal laughed. Tanya finally sat down for a proper meal. It wasn't fixed, not yet, but something had shifted. Nolan walked to his car just after dark, the wind cutting sharper than it had in days. As he turned the key, his phone buzzed. A message from the HR director. Request to review all manager promotions from the past year, already pulling files. He leaned back in the seat, eyes on the warehouse lights still glowing behind him. Tomorrow, he'd be back before sunrise. There was more to do, but for the first time in a long time, the work felt clean. By the following Monday, the warehouse at Store 9 was in a fragile but functioning state. Lisa had spent the weekend rebuilding the staffing schedule from scratch. 3 new part-time hires from nearby branches were rotating in to help with the load. It wasn't a full solution, but it gave the team breathing room. For the first time in weeks, the morning shift started without panic or confusion. Nolan had been back on site every day since the reveal. Not as a symbol, he refused to just be a figurehead, but as a problem solver. He'd claimed a spare desk in the main office and spent hours reviewing supply chain logs, repair backlogs, and pending customer disputes. But more than that, he listened, quietly, closely. That morning, he watched as Tanya flagged Lisa over during a crate check. "These 3 pallets weren't on the manifest," Tanya said, pointing to the barcode tags. "Might have been transferred from store 11, but no routing info." Lisa crouched to scan the tags. "You're right, and they're perishable." She stood and turned to Nolan. "We've got a routing gap between branches. No one cross-checks interbranch transfers before they load." Nolan looked over the labels. Frozen goods. If Tanya hadn't caught it, they would have sat unrefrigerated until the next outbound. "Write up a temp protocol," he said. "All interbranch transfers need verification from both sides. Until we automate, it's manual." Tanya hesitated. "I can draft something." "You just did," he said. "Finish it. Lisa will help you format it." Tanya nodded and returned to her scanner. By mid-morning, Nolan called Kira into the office. She came in walking slower than usual, her knees stiff from the cold weather. "Let's sit," he said, motioning to the chair across from him. "You've been handling inventory solo too long." Kira leaned back cautiously. "There's no one else trained on it." "There will be," he said. "But I also wanted to talk about you. I went through your file. You've been juggling night classes, full-time shifts, and a slow healing injury. That's not sustainable." Her jaw tightened. "I can manage. I know you can. But that doesn't mean you should have to." She narrowed her eyes slightly. "What are you saying?" "You're being moved to a modified schedule. 4 days a week, still full-time by hours. But we're adjusting for your recovery. You'll lead a small task group during inbound audits. Less strain, more focus." She didn't speak for a few seconds. "I don't want this to look like special treatment." "It's not," he said. "It's overdue recognition. You've been holding this place together with a clipboard and a limp." She glanced away, then back. "And after May? Finish your degree. If you're still interested in logistics, I want you applying for the regional analyst position we're creating. It's remote flex. You'd be a strong fit." Her voice dropped slightly. "Is this because I spoke up?" "No, it's because you've been doing the job of 3 people and still kept the data clean." She nodded slowly, then stood. "All right, I'll take it." Before she left, she paused. "No one ever asked what I wanted before. They just told me what to fix." He looked at her. "That won't happen again." After lunch, Nolan stepped outside to take a call from the legal team. They'd finished the review of Jerome's actions. Unauthorized scheduling changes, withheld overtime, 2 formal HR complaints that had been ignored and improperly filed. "Terminate with cause," Nolan said, "and notify the board." He hung up and stayed in the cold for a moment, watching a delivery van reverse into the dock. Eli stepped out, his posture straighter now, bundled in a company-issued jacket. Nolan walked over. "How's the hotel treating you?" Eli tightened the strap on the dolly. "Hot water, clean sheets. I forgot what real sleep felt like." "You're not back full-time yet," Nolan said. But I wanted to talk options. You mean long-term? Eli asked. Yeah. We've got a driver supervisor retiring soon at Store 3. It's closer to your brother's place, right? Eli blinked. You pulled my file. Had to. You listed him as emergency contact. I figured if you're looking for stability, maybe a relocation with higher pay and a company vehicle makes sense. Eli stared at him. You trust me with that? You've been showing up in freezing weather, injured, and still got every route out on time. I'd trust you to teach half our staff what work ethic actually means. Eli looked down, then back up. I'd take that transfer. It's yours. HR will walk you through the move. Inside, Lisa had pulled the team into a short logistics huddle. She was walking them through a new rotation for dock assignments, simple, fair, and based on skill tiers. No one objected. People asked questions. Even the newer temps felt like they had a voice. Jamal stepped in from the back lot, holding a clipboard. He handed it to Lisa, who gave it a glance and then looked at Nolan. He just flagged a mismatch in the outbound route list, she said. Same issue Tanya caught earlier, different delivery set. Nolan tilted his head. You catch that from memory? Jamal shifted slightly. I just noticed the sequencing was off. I've been studying the patterns. You've got a quiet eye, Jamal, Nolan said. We need someone like you in quality control. Ever thought about training for it? Jamal hesitated. Didn't think I could. You can. Lisa will set you up with the modules. Let's give it a week and see how it feels. Jamal gave a quick nod, then moved back into the flow of traffic. That afternoon, the company's internal server pushed a notice to every employee inbox. Policy update, anonymous reporting protocol. Expanded, direct line to executive oversight. No intermediaries. It wasn't just for show. Nolan had created the email alias himself. One inbox, no filters. Every issue, big or small, routed straight to him and two senior HR figures he trusted. Later, as forklifts idled and the bulk of the crew clocked out, Nolan walked the length of the warehouse floor. The air was still cold, but the energy had changed. People weren't rushing to leave. They weren't watching over their shoulders. They moved with purpose, not fear. He passed the old break room. The vending machine had been fixed. Someone had written "thank you" on a sticky note and stuck it to the glass. He didn't know who. It didn't matter. He stepped outside just as the sun dipped behind the edge of the loading bay. The last van pulled out. Lights flicked off behind him, one by one. Lisa walked out a few minutes later, coat zipped, a tablet under her arm. You're not going to be able to do this for every location, she said. I know. She paused. So what's the plan? We build a culture where no one has to go undercover to learn the truth. She gave a short nod. You've got a long road. So do they, he said, watching the last truck disappear down the road. But at least now we're on it together. Then he turned and walked back toward the parking lot, not to leave, but to meet with the night shift coming in. Because this wasn't a wrap-up. It was a commitment. One grounded in policy, in structure, and in the kind of leadership that didn't hide behind titles. Not anymore.